In a huge victory for Elon Musk, the Global Alliance for Responsible Media is discontinuing after Musk's X accused the group of boycotting the platform. The Global Alliance for Responsible Media, known as GARM, is a nonprofit group of advertisers led by the World Federation of Advertisers. GARM aims to help brands from having harmful or illegal content appear alongside ads. The lawsuit that X filed claimed GARM violated antitrust laws by coordinating with brands to persuade them not to spend money on X. The World Federation of Advertisers denied GARM's work violated antitrust laws, but said GARM did not have the financial resources to continue its operations while fighting X in court. In an email first obtained by Business Insider, the CEO of the World Federation of Advertisers said, quote, "This decision was not made lightly, but GARM is a non-for-profit organization and its resources are limited."
The House Judiciary Committee reacted to the news on X, writing, quote, "Big win for the First Amendment, big win for oversight." To which the CEO of X, Linda Yaccarino, said, quote, "No small group should be able to monopolize what gets monetized. This is an important acknowledgement and a necessary step in the right direction. I am hopeful that it means ecosystem-wide reform is coming." And the Daily Wire's Ben Shapiro also celebrated the decision, calling GARM a, quote, "censorship syndicate." Let's watch.
I testified before Congress just a few weeks ago about the Global Alliance for Responsible Media, which was effectively a censorship syndicate designed to shut down all advertising dollars to anyone on the right side of the aisle. Essentially a third-party delegated company that all these advertising agencies would go to. They would create a false standard for what was acceptable or non-acceptable material, and then they would tell advertisers that they simply should not and could not put their money with untrustworthy sources. All those untrustworthy sources were always on the right, of course.
I think this is great news. X is one of the few platforms that has allowed free speech to proliferate with massive censorship regimes from companies like Meta, shutting down conservative speech. And we know that GARM was specifically targeting conservative media outlets and conservative political commentators to try to demonetize their content so that they're not able to make a living with their posts the same way that commentators on the other side of the political aisle were. This was obviously a political hit job, and I think it's good news that Elon Musk forced them to back down.
I think that's comical given that Elon Musk has been shutting down every single demographic for Kamala Harris on Twitter over the last week, whether it was white men for Kamala Harris or Latinas for Kamala Harris or, all these little demo groups have been shut down, not to mention other progressives who've been shadow banned on Twitter. I mean, there are plenty of shadow banned accounts, and probably including myself, to be honest, because they shut down one of my videos that I produced last year involving Puerto Rico. So, I don't think that conservatives are the ones being targeted. This is a member-based group. It has over 100 members. It's a nonprofit. Nonprofits can't be political by law as a 501c3. So I think this was a tool, using the courts as a tool against nonprofits which do not have the funding. Now, the companies have the funding. The companies could independently say, we do not want to put our brands at risk by associating with Alex Jones's account on Twitter, which is full of hate speech and conspiracy theories. Of course, these companies can independently do so. It's sad that this nonprofit, which only has 2 staffers, and is already facing legal obstacles with Jim Jordan's committee in Congress right now. And now Elon Musk is saying that he's going to go after them with RICO. It's outrageous. Elon Musk has a lot of money. He's doing whatever he can to try to get these advertisers back. But I don't think shutting down this organization is going to get the advertisers back. I think him no longer supporting hate speech online and conspiracy theorists online and giving them more sway in the algorithm, that is what is going to give its advertising revenue back.
Okay. I'll start with the question about the Kamala Harris accounts being shut down. I'm looking at White Dudes for Harris right now with a blue check mark next to it with 124,000 followers. But I'll check out those other groups you mentioned.
It was quite a few. Yeah.
Okay.
But I might have reinstated it.
I guess the fundamental question here is, what is hate speech and what is a conspiracy theory? And does engaging in your subjective interpretation of hate speech warrant being censored online? And because hate speech is a subjective category, one person's hate speech is another person's normal political speech. And we've seen in the past how normal conservative political thought, like saying that illegal immigrants who come to the country illegal should be deported, is considered hate speech by some on the left. I don't think that should be censored. That's something that the majority of Americans agree with. And we also know that in the past, we had a censorship campaign against the New York Post for running a story about Hunter Biden's laptop, which was verified by national security experts who found that this laptop was not manipulated, that it was not Russian disinformation, despite that letter from 51 intelligence assets who claimed that it was. They did not have access to any of their social media accounts prior to the 2020 election because they dared to run this story. So when you have these so-called misinformation experts applying the misinformation label to things that are factually true, that becomes a serious problem for the ability for people to have open inquiry, open debate, free speech online, which in many ways is now the public square and plays a huge role in how people get their information. X is now the #1 ranked website as to where people get their news from. Mm-hmm. And I think we have to trust the consumer to be able to determine for themselves what is true and what is false.
Trust the consumer. I mean, the algorithms are created and written by conservative-leaning white men. I mean, this is not just on X. This is also on Google. When Google
conservative-leaning white men write the algorithms on Google that doesn't allow you to search for Trump's assassination attempt.
So when Google hired someone to come in and assess their algorithms and whether or not they're racist and sexist, guess what? She came out and said, this was a black woman who said, yes, they're racist and sexist after extensive review, and Google fired her. I mean, there are several cases. The same thing with Twitter.
I'm sure she had no incentive to say that.
Well, she provided the data and the evidence. I mean, incentive. It's called, this is the reality of how algorithms are written.
I would like to know how she
why is it that
that
conservative accounts are much more popular online? An algorithm that is written...
Because people like their content and they consume it more.
Sure, I'm sure. But 5 years ago, before the algorithms changed, they were not as popular.
That's not true.
That's 100% true.
No, so you can go back to Facebook engagement back before the 2016 election and you'll see the same thing.
In 2016, progressive accounts were far more popular on Facebook and on Twitter. The algorithm switched in that year. Same thing with Google. The algorithms changed, and this has been reported on. And Twitter, by the way, also fired their accountability team that was supposed to be investigating whether or not it was hate speech. So you're saying that if you're in a newsroom, you don't want editors to decide whether or not something's true or false. It's not always going to be perfect, but Twitter is an open market of ideas, and there should be editorial oversight.
You can't say it's an open market of ideas, but then also there should be editorial oversight. If Twitter is going to act like a newspaper or a publisher, then they have to be subjected to the same regulations that newspapers are, but they're not because it is an open speech platform. That is the fundamental difference. If they're going to do political content or ideology-based moderation, then they have to be subjected to the same regulations that the FEC puts on our media outlets.
Correct.
But they're not because they don't.
That's what they're fighting over. They're saying they're this free speech platform. They're a corporation. There's no such thing as free speech in corporations, and we know that, right? This is an argument that libertarians like to make all day. Free speech based on whose terms? Elon Musk's terms? Because it's Elon Musk's decision at the end of the day who decides to be supported and who decides not to be supported. Alex Jones, who was found in a court of law as being a conspiracy theorist, is a prime example. He reinstituted Alex Jones after he was convicted. So for using the law as this metric, then here's a prime example of somebody who is part of this conspiratorial hate-mongering machine being propped up on Twitter just because Elon Musk allowed for that to happen. And White Dudes for Twitter has twice been taken down on Twitter, X, excuse me, I keep saying Twitter, and maybe they reinstituted after the bad press, but he's already taking him down twice.
Yeah, and I think we would have to look at why they were taken down because, of course, when people violate the terms of service that are on X, then they get removed. And if after a review it was found that they didn't violate the terms of service, then they should be reinstated. And that's a classic part of platform management. But you say that it's all up to what Elon Musk decides. But you're saying that you want hate speech removed from X. So, I mean, do you get to decide? I mean, that's exactly the problem is when we go beyond terms of service and start trying to do content-based moderation based on what we deem to be hate speech or conspiracy theories. In the past, there's been so many cases where people have got that wrong who is going to be in charge of determining whether or not something is hateful or a conspiracy
Right
theory?
now, no one's in charge except for Elon Musk. He's fired most of the team that was assessing
Right,
whether
but
or
I'm
not something
saying- what
was
I'm saying is
truthful
that-
or true or false, hate or not hate. I mean, these aren't hard things to. When someone says something violently against you on Twitter, that's hate speech. When someone
There are terms of service that say that you cannot make
Right.
threats of violence, right?
Exactly.
So there's a difference between inciting or threatening violence
Right.
and saying something that you think is hateful.
It's not about what I think. It is having people on a team that are able to assess this. Right now, Twitter is empty. He got rid of tons of his staff, the people who are in charge of overseeing this. You know, if you file a complaint, I mean, how many times I've reported people who've said nasty things against me, threatened my life, and I'll probably get it today, and nothing has happened because there's nobody on Team X right now overseeing this except for Elon Musk. I literally posted a video last year. It was an investigative video about a cryptocurrency entrepreneur in Puerto Rico. That guy called Elon Musk personally to have the video taken down. Do you not see the problem with this?
No, I agree. That would be a problem if that case happened. I agree with that. But I don't see a broader problem with the idea that Elon Musk should err on the side of allowing free speech, even if certain people might deem some content hateful. If it's not directly threatening violence or inciting violence, then I think we should err on the side of allowing information to flow on X. Because again, there have been people within the US government, no less, who have claimed to be misinformation experts or disinformation experts, who have made the wrong call repeatedly on stories of great significance. I mean, the Hunter Biden laptop story is the perfect example of this. They claimed that was disinformation. It was not. Every mainstream media outlet at this point has confirmed that it was real, and now there are active court cases involving Hunter Biden because of that. So if we're going to say, well, we need to police what's true and false on social media, you start to get into very dangerous territory, especially since we do have a First Amendment in this country. People have a right to free speech.
You have a right to free speech, but not within a corporation. So either they're a news publication or they're not. Either they're a corporation or they're not. I mean, right now, there is no free speech on Twitter. So if we're going to debate that, you know, we can have a real conversation about who's getting banned and who's not, and based on what terms. Right now, there are no standards. So yes, there are terms and policies, but if we want to have a set of standards, then we have to define what is hate speech. Because right now, there's no definition of any of this, and everything's running amok. There are fake accounts. There's bots. I mean, does a bot have the same right as you and I do?
Well, there's
not in free speech land.
You said that there's no definition of hate speech, and there never will be one that people agree on because it is fundamentally a subjective idea.
Well,
but
you
I would
say the same thing
challenge
about
you,
an editor in a newsroom.
But Twitter's not a newsroom, so I would challenge you to, if you have a definition of hate speech that you prefer, to share it now, so that we can actually get to the bottom of what it is that you want X to be doing in terms of content moderation.
Okay, it's not up for me to decide. That's the whole point, is that we need people, a team.
But who does it then? Like literally who? Because if it's not you, if it's not Elon Musk, then who gets to decide what's allowed on X?
They used to have staff. They used to have editorial advisors.
Company. Elon Musk owns the company, so actually he does get to decide.
He does. That's what I'm saying. But you can't say free speech. But here's the thing. You want it both ways. You want Elon Musk to be the decider.
Of free speech on X.
You want Elon Musk to decide everything, but you also want to say free speech. Well, he doesn't. If it's free speech, and Elon Musk is the one deciding what speech is real. And meanwhile, let's not forget how many fake accounts are on there.
He's limiting the terms of service to things that are against law, right? Because he's trying to promote a culture of free speech on the platform. Yes, obviously Twitter is not under the jurisdiction of the First Amendment. We all know that. We know how the Constitution works. But he is erring on the side of, I am not going to make ideological decisions on what content is allowed on this platform because I want to give people the opportunity to decide for themselves what they think is true and what they think is false. I'm not going to police it a la YouTube or Meta, where they say, oh, you're not allowed to talk about vaccine harm, or you're not allowed to say that people can still get COVID if they have the vaccine because the scientific experts and the disinformation experts all said that was false. And then surprise, 3 months later, we were all vindicated because
what
all
harm?
of those things were true.
I mean, I think they're focusing more on, for instance, terrorism. I mean, there are accounts that are pushing terrorism on Twitter still. Adam McKay gets shut down. His Twitter account gets shut down last week. But we have plenty of far-right hate mongers. You have terrorist accounts. You have bots. How many bots are still on Twitter? And yet you have real people who have ideas, who want to have debate and still don't know why their accounts were shut down, Adam McKay in this particular instance. So if you're going to have a set of standards, then it has to be equal for all people. It means the platform needs to be equal.
That's exactly my point.
So make the algorithms transparent, make them equal, get rid of the bots because they're not, real people. Make sure that there are no troll farms. If there is actual threats, which are happening every day, every second on Twitter, then you should shut down those accounts as well.
I completely agree. And what I'm saying here is that there's a fundamental problem where you can criticize Elon Musk for individual decisions that X has made in terms of content moderation. But to say that this nonprofit group that is going around and specifically singling out the Daily Wire, Fox News, Breitbart News, Judiciary, GOP, Ben Shapiro, et cetera, and saying that they shouldn't be allowed on the platform. And if they are, we're going to actually give a financial disincentive for X to remove them. I find that to be problematic.
They flag those accounts for their members who are major corporations, and the corporations can still make a decision whether or not they want to advertise or not. There's 100 members. Unilever, you don't think Unilever can disassociate and say, in this situation, yes, we'll continue to support Ben Shapiro?
They can, but then they're going to catch the ire of the GARM and all of the people who follow it, who are going to accuse them of being Nazis and supporting hateful content.
Well, maybe Ben Shapiro should be more thoughtful about his ideas and his opinions and whether or not they hurt or impact people or it's misinformation.
But that doesn't mean that he should be censored. If you think that about
no one's censoring him. It's Elon Musk's platform. It means that Elon Musk doesn't get to make money off of his opinions from those specific members.
All right. We're going to have to leave it there. We'll be back with more Rising after this.